Don't watch if you go to the toilet alone. Mike lives in an old apartment complex in downtown New York, where most of the apartments are run down, but for the affordable rent, he couldn't ask for more. The complex dates back to the 1950s and is known for its old, broken plumbing. The bathroom was at the end of the hallway, a common room shared by 4 apartments on the same floor, and was generally avoided at night due to the cold, damp atmosphere. Mike wasn't superstitious, but he couldn't deny the strange feeling this bathroom gave him every time he entered it. Late one night, after working late, Mike was lying in bed getting ready for bed when he heard the sound of dripping water in the distance. At first, he thought it was just the familiar sound of an old plumbing system. But the sound of water continued and seemed to get louder. Feeling uneasy, Mike sat up and went outside to investigate. Mike's apartment wasn't very big, and the hallway leading to the bathroom wasn't long, but as he walked step by step in the dark, he somehow felt like the path seemed to lengthen, as if there was something strange. The light from the hallway flickered, sometimes only bright enough to see a few steps ahead. As he approached the bathroom, Mike realized that the sound of running water was no longer just a trickle, but had now become a continuous stream from the faucet. His unease grew, but he still tried to stay calm and opened the bathroom door. The dim yellow light from the ceiling illuminated a strange scene. The sink faucet was running, water splashing everywhere. Mike sighed, thinking someone had forgotten to turn it off, and went to turn it off. When he touched the handle, the water stopped immediately. Mike glanced around. Everything was normal, or at least he tried to convince himself that it was. He turned and walked out. However, just after leaving a few steps, the sound of water rang out again, this time louder than before. Mike stopped, his heart pounding. No way, he told himself, then turned back to look at the bathroom. The water started running again, not just from the sink, but from the toilet and the pipes in the ceiling as well. The water poured down onto the floor, seemingly without stopping, and the floor began to flood. Mike was afraid that the apartment would flood if he left it like that, so he quickly went to turn the faucet off again. But this time, when he touched the handle, the water didn't stop. Everything seemed surreal. Mike began to panic. He yanked on the faucet handle, trying to stop the flow, but it was no use. The water kept pouring out, flooding the floor, reaching his ankles. His anxiety began to turn to fear. Mike backed away, but as he was about to leave the room, the door slammed shut with such force that the entire room shook. The sound made him jump, his heart pounding. Mike panicked, trying to pull the door open, but it wouldn't budge. It felt like someone or something was holding the door shut from the outside. He started banging on the door, screaming, but no one answered.
Help me!
The water continued to rise, now up to his knees, cold and strangely thick. In his panic, Mike heard a chuckle coming from behind him. The laughter was soft, eerie, and seemed to echo from every corner of the room. He turned around, the flashlight on his phone shining through every corner of the small bathroom, but saw no one. Not a soul, no sign of life, just the sound of rushing water and creepy laughter, as if someone was standing right next to him, teasing him. Mike started to panic in earnest. He searched for any way out, but the water had risen dangerously high, waist-deep, and showed no signs of stopping. The room was freezing, and a suffocating feeling was enveloping him. With nothing left to lose, Mike shouted loudly, asking the invisible man to stop. But in response, he was only met with laughter that gradually faded away, leaving behind an eerie silence.
Help me!
He sensed something was wrong, something beyond imagination was happening. Mike turned and looked into the mirror, hoping to find some semblance of calm in himself. But instead of his own face, he saw a shadowy figure behind him. It was the image of a tall, thin man with deep black eyes, staring at him with a ghostly smile. The man stood silently in the middle of the water, seemingly unaffected by the flood. Panicked, Mike turned to face behind him, but there was no one. The room was empty, only the water rising little by little. But when he turned back to the mirror, the figure was still there, his eyes boring into Mike as if inviting him into another world where life did not exist. Mike felt his blood freeze, his whole body shaking uncontrollably. He struggled with the door again, trying to pull it open, but the door still wouldn't budge. The laughter rang out again, closer this time, echoing from every corner of the room, driving Mike almost crazy. Then, suddenly, the water stopped. The room became strangely quiet. The door, which had been impossible to open, opened with a soft creak. Mike rushed out, soaked, his heart pounding. He looked back and realized that the water in the bathroom had disappeared without a trace. The room was dry and normal, as if nothing had happened. But Mike knew what he had just experienced was real. He couldn't explain it, and he didn't dare go back to that room. When telling the story to his neighbors, an elderly man said that many years ago, a man had drowned in this very bathroom, and since then, many people have heard the sound of running water at night, a sound that never stops. For Mike, this ghost story is not just a rumor. It is a terrifying reality that he will never forget. Julie, a single mother living with her young daughter Lily, decided to buy an old house in a small town in Pennsylvania. Hoping to start a new life after her divorce, Julie was delighted to find an affordable house. Although the house was old and in need of repair, it was located in a quiet area surrounded by lush green forest. It was the perfect start to a new life for the mother and daughter. As soon as she moved in, Julie noticed something strange about the house. The bathroom was located downstairs, near the living room, which always gave off a cold and gloomy feeling. At first, she thought it was just because the house was old and lacked natural light, but the heavy feeling in that small room never went away. Every time Julie passed the bathroom door, she always felt like someone was standing on the other side of the door, staring at her, even though there was no one else in the house except the two of them. That evening, after a long day of cleaning and organizing, Julie felt exhausted. She put her daughter to bed early and then went back to the living room to watch TV and relax a bit. As the clock approached midnight, Julie decided to go to bed. She got up to turn off the light, but just then, she heard a slight creaking sound coming from the bathroom. The old wooden door of the bathroom slowly opened, and there was no one inside. Julie shivered. She had made sure she had closed the door after using it last that afternoon. Trying to convince herself that it was just the wind blowing, she walked over to close the door and returned to her room. But after only a few steps, she heard the door slowly open again. This time, clearer, slower, as if someone was deliberately pushing it open from the inside. Julie spun around. She rushed to the door, slammed it shut firmly, and made sure there was no wind blowing through the house that could push the door open. Relieved, she went back to bed. However, not long after lying down, a noise woke Julie up. This time it was the sound of a wooden door slamming loudly. Julie jumped up, her heart pounding. The noise was coming from the bathroom. She turned on the nightlight and listened. The door was once again open, but this time it was no longer silent, but it made strange echoing sounds as if someone was pulling and pushing hard from inside. Julie was scared, but decided to check. She grabbed her flashlight and walked slowly down the stairs, her whole body shaking. When she got to the bathroom door, she saw that it was wide open, like a ghostly invitation. Julie turned on her flashlight and shined it into the bathroom, but saw no one. She went inside to check again. Inside was still a simple bathroom with a sink, toilet, and a small old mirror, all silent. But that strange feeling still did not go away. As she was about to leave the room, she heard a whisper from somewhere. "Don't open." The voice was faint, but clear. Julie froze. The whisper came again, closer, clearer, as if it were coming from the bathroom door she had just closed. She couldn't make sense of the sound. A cold feeling enveloped her, rendering her unable to move. Julie panicked, running towards the stairs to run back to her bedroom. But when she turned back, the door was slowly opening again, the creaking sound lingering in the darkness. She looked inside, and this time, in the dim light, she clearly saw a pale hand grasping the door from the inside, pulling it open. The water continued to rise, now up to his knees, cold and strangely thick. She raced up the stairs, feeling as if someone or something was following her. When she reached her bedroom and closed the door, she shivered in the corner, trying to steady her breathing and calm herself. She told herself it was just a hallucination caused by fatigue and stress. But deep down, Julie knew that something was wrong with this house. The next day, Julie decided to call a locksmith to check the bathroom door. The locksmith was a middle-aged man with a tough appearance who had been in the business for many years. After a thorough inspection, he said that there was nothing wrong with the door. But when Julie told him what happened last night, his eyes became serious. "This house has a rather dark history," the locksmith said, his voice low. "A family lived here many years ago. They had a son named David, and one day he suddenly disappeared. No one knows what happened, but ever since then, people have been hearing strange noises coming from the bathroom." Julie was silent, trying to absorb the locksmith's words. She didn't know how to react. Then he continued, "Many people who lived here have seen the bathroom door open by itself at night. Some have even heard whispering. Rumor has it that it was David's spirit trying to communicate from the other side." Julie felt a chill run down her spine. She didn't believe in ghost stories, but what had happened was too real to ignore. As soon as the locksmith left, Julie decided to talk to her neighbors to find out more. An old woman who lived nearby, listening to Julie's story, quietly shook her head. "My son used to play with David," she said. "He was a gentle boy, but one day he disappeared without a trace. People said he got stuck in that toilet. And since then, no one has dared to stay in this house for long." The old woman also said that many people had tried to sell the house before, but no one dared to buy it. Julie began to regret moving to this place. She could not live in a house haunted by the spirit of a missing child. That night, Julie decided to try something different. She got her daughter ready for bed and stood guard by the bathroom door herself. Every time the door tried to open, she gently closed it and said, "David, if you're here, I'm sorry for what happened to you. You don't have to be stuck here anymore. Go in peace." Samantha was a senior at a small suburban college. Final exams were coming up, and to escape the noise of her dormitory, she often went to the nearby public library to study. The library was housed in an old building from the 1930s. The atmosphere was quiet, the space spacious, but it had a gloomy, eerie air when night fell. The library was not without its spooky rumors. Some students reported hearing footsteps echoing down the deserted hallways, or unexplained whispers coming from the old bookshelves. Samantha, however, paid little attention to them. She did not believe in ghosts and dismissed them as the imaginations of the faint-hearted. Late one weekend evening, Samantha went to the library to finish her homework. Since it was a holiday, the library was almost empty, save for her and a few others studying in silence. The sense of peace seemed to pervade everything, making it easy for Samantha to concentrate. Around 11 p.m., feeling tired and in need of a break, Samantha decided to go to the bathroom. The library bathroom was in the basement, where few people went, and she had to go down a narrow, spiraling staircase. Each step she took echoed off the stone walls, the sound of loneliness becoming more pronounced. As she entered the bathroom, Samantha felt a cold, damp atmosphere, making her shiver slightly. The bathroom was old with 4 closed stalls, a sink, and a large mirror hanging right above the sink. Samantha stood in front of the mirror to wash her face, regaining her composure before continuing her studies. As she washed her hands and looked in the mirror, a strange feeling began to take over. She felt like someone was watching her, but when she turned around, the bathroom was completely empty. She tried to convince herself that it was just fatigue. The dim fluorescent light made everything seem colder, but it was nothing to worry about. Samantha wiped her face and turned to look in the mirror again. Suddenly, she saw a shadowy figure behind her. It wasn't clear, just a blurry shape with long hair that fell down to cover her face. Samantha's heart pounded, and she spun around, but there was nothing behind her. The bathroom was still empty. Her breathing became labored, but she tried to convince herself that it was just a tired illusion. She glanced back at the mirror, and the figure was gone. Samantha shook her head, laughing at herself for her irrational panic, then left the bathroom and returned to the study area. Still, she had a nagging feeling of unease. Every time she bent over to read for the rest of the evening, she felt as if something was wrong, as if someone was watching her from afar. She tried to ignore it and focus on her homework, but the nagging fear wouldn't go away. Near midnight, the library began to announce that it was closing time. Samantha packed up her books, but before she left, she felt the need to use the bathroom again. She didn't want to go back to the basement bathroom, but everything was deserted, and she didn't want to go too far. As she walked down the stairs again, the chills came back. The bathroom seemed even darker than before. Samantha took a deep breath, trying to get her work done quickly and leave. She went straight into the bathroom and closed the door, but the feeling that something was wrong kept growing inside her. The slight whistling of the wind from the small window startled Samantha. As she stepped out of the room and stood before the sink, her attention was drawn to the mirror once more. The figure she had seen before was there again, clearer than ever, standing right behind her. But this time, it was not just a shadow. It was the image of a woman with long hair that covered her face. The woman was pale, exuding a chill that went to the bone. Samantha froze. She didn't dare turn around, just stood there staring at the mirror, her body stiff. The woman in the mirror began to approach her, slowly, her thin, pale hand reaching out as if to touch her shoulder. At this point, Samantha screamed and ran out of the bathroom. She ran up the stairs, her heart pounding, and never looked back. When she reached the library door, she felt like she had escaped the horror. But the image of the woman in the mirror haunted her every second. The next day, Samantha told the story to her friends and the library staff, but no one believed her. They thought she was too stressed out from her studies and had an overactive imagination. However, an older staff member who had worked at the library for many years looked at her strangely and pulled her aside. "You're not the first person to see her," she whispered. "Years ago, a girl committed suicide in that bathroom. Since then, several students have said they've seen her reflection in the mirror." Samantha's heart was pounding. She didn't want to believe it, but it was all too real. The clerk continued, "They say she never leaves the mirror. Every night, she stays there, waiting for someone to come in and see her." From that night on, Samantha never returned to the library late again, and she always stayed away from the mirror in the basement bathroom. But what she saw that night still haunted her mind, and sometimes, in her dreams, she still saw that woman, with cold hands reaching out from the mirror, as if to drag her into the darkness forever. The story of the mirror in the public restroom became a terrifying memory that Samantha could never forget. Whenever she entered an empty restroom, she always told herself that she would never look in the mirror for too long, because she didn't know if she would see something else lurking there. If you find the story interesting, please like and subscribe to wait for the next story.